Lions lose a valuable piece to their front office and on game days.
You are Locked On Lions, your daily Detroit Lions podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, what's good, everybody? Matt Derry with you. It is Locked On Lions on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Today is Wednesday, February 19th, and a Thursday, February 20th. We got the Combine coming up next week in Indianapolis. The great DA, Damon Amendolara from Sirius XM's Mad Dog Sports Radio, hosts the morning show of the DA Show with Babchick's going to join us tomorrow on the program. But a lot to get to on today's show, including Jon Dykema leaving the Lions front office to go back to his alma mater to run the NIL program at Michigan State. We'll talk about what Jon did and his importance to the Lions coming up momentarily. Also, Brad Holmes speaks. He was on a Local 4, Channel 4 yesterday, did a lengthy interview with Rhonda Walker, about 50 minutes. And I want to play a snippet that I think should tell the tale of what to expect from Brad this offseason with the Lions. We'll get into that. Darius Slay says he would come back to Detroit. Why I would welcome that. We will discuss that coming up momentarily. Also, much more on the program. We got a ton of topics today. Sometimes I put the topics up on the screen and I can even read them myself. Myles Garrett chances. We'll get into that. And of course, the salary cap memo went out to NFL owners today. And good news, Lions are going to have some more money to spend. All of that coming up today right here on Locked On Lions. But shout out to our everydayers that are out there that watch and listen to the podcast daily. Thank you to all of you that do that. Also, if you want to be our call of the day, maybe we'll do a call of the day tomorrow. You can leave a voicemail at speakpipe.com, www.speakpipe.com/Derry podcast page. All right, a quick news nugget at the start of the show here. I mentioned before, many people don't know this, but a gentleman by the name of Jon Dykema has been with the Lions front office for the last 15 years. And today it was announced that Dykema is taking a position at his alma mater, Michigan State University, to help with their NIL program, overseeing NIL contracts, commercial partnerships, and sponsorships. Jon Dykema is from Grand Rapids. He was a student manager at Michigan State for basketball under Tom Izzo, and he spent the last 14 years with Lions overseeing contracts and salary cap stuff. But also what Jon Dykema did on game days was he was in Dan Campbell's ear helping out with should they throw the challenge flag and replays and all of that, and was helping navigate before games, during games, and after games, kind of Dan Campbell's game plans and just a sense of almost coaching the head coach from up in the booth. And while we sit here and talk about, hey, we knew the Lions were going to lose a lot of people. And yes, they've lost now their ninth, I think it's either ninth or 10th front office person over the last handful of years. And that's because they've done well. But many people will say, there's some lower level staffer that worked with Mike Disner and did salary cap stuff and was part of the legal team is gone after 14 years. No, Jon was highly respected, was a huge help to Dan Campbell during games, and was in his headset for years, helping him with kind of navigating through the game and making split decisions. And again, replay and challenge flag opportunities. So kind of a big loss. This is a guy that was very popular in the building in Allen Park, and the Lions are going to have to replace him. So good luck and best of luck to Jon Dykema as he goes to Michigan State, his alma mater. But leaving the Lions, it's another loss. And look, I still think the Lions are going to be very good this year. I say it every single day. I have a lot of confidence in this franchise. I think they've made some good additions on the coaching staff. But when you have success, a lot of good people get taken away. And Jon is another one of those good people that did a really, really good job in the front office. And I'm a little bit surprised. Maybe he loves MSU. Maybe he wants to go back and help the athletic department. Lord knows it needs it. That's a school that at times is a little bit off of the sometimes drives off the road. I was at the Michigan State Indiana football. I don't know why I'm doing this, but I was at the Michigan State Indiana basketball game last week when Indiana won last Tuesday. And they put Jonathan Smith, the head football coach, up on the big screen, and no one knew who he was. There wasn't a cheer. There wasn't a boo. There wasn't anything. They put some dancing old woman on there 16 times. You guys know who I'm talking about? This woman at Michigan State. And they're showing her and her daughter, and she's dancing, and they love her. They throw the head football coach up there. No one knows who he is. Maybe Jon Dykema is going to come there and help bring some players there and build that program back up, because that program is like, no, does anybody talk about Michigan State football? And then maybe they'll do a good job. He was a good hire a couple of years ago, but talk about somebody that's nondescript. Anyway, Lions, that's somebody to keep an eye on this. Who's going to be Dan Campbell's eyes and ears up on the press box? It was Jon Dykema, and he is no longer with the organization. I just want to put that out there. That's a key loss. All right. So Brad Holmes, Channel 4. Let's get to that for a second here. Lengthy interview with Rondo Walker. Does Channel 4 have a sports department? I don't even know. Sorry. Shout out to Hobie or whatever his name is. And the 12-year-old that does the weekends. Anyway, Brad Holmes was on with Rondo Walker. Our Harbor Springs insider will get all this inside bits of stuff I'm talking about. Shout out to him. He's an everydayer. So Holmes was on with Rondo Walker, and they're asking a lot of different questions about Brad's background and Brad being a PR intern and working for the Rams in PR. And then he got a chance to work in the front office there. And it's a great story. He's become an unbelievable story. He's one of the best general managers in the game. He's the best GM in this town. All right. There's some good ones, but he's done a great job with the Lions. And he's taking the Lions from 3 wins to 9 to 12 to 15. Hard to argue with Brad Holmes' pedigree. He was asked about Jahmyr Gibbs and some of the players on the team, and Brad went on a little bit of a tangent about the draft. And when we're talking about Myles Garrett almost every single day, and will the Lions do this? Will the Lions pull the trigger? Will they trade draft picks and multiple first rounders to go get a player that I think would be fantastic for the team? Take a listen to Brad Holmes on Channel 4 talking about the draft. This is courtesy of Channel 4.
When you hear the naysayers from the outside world, I always say, look, give the draft a little bit more respect, because we've been working on this for 9 months and we have all this information. And when the outside world been kind of working on it for maybe a couple of months, and they don't have much information.
And we're probably just talking, and really doing any type of analysis of players.
It's a little bit, it's just, and when I say more respect, it's it's not just about you don't just stack a position. This player plays this position, so move this player down. This player plays this position, so move this player up. The draft's not that easy. It's not that easy. It's complex. It is a lot more work. So that's when you do the work, that's when a Jahmyr Gibbs does come to light,
Holmes talking about the draft and kind of saying, hey, we spend 9 months on this, and it is vital that you get it right. And it's so important. And this is how we build our team. And I listened to that clip, and I watched the clip as well. And my takeaway from it is that he loves the draft. He values those picks so much that I just don't know. And I don't think he's going to trade for Myles Garrett or Trey Hendrickson or Max Crosby or any of that ilk. Would the Lions be unbelievable up front with Aleem McNeil, Aiden Hutchinson, DJ Reader, and Myles Garrett? Yes. Would I love to see the Lions go for it a little bit, maybe send a first rounder and Hendon Hooker and whatever else to Cleveland? Yeah, I'm for it. But I'm also realistic, and my job on this show daily is to tell you what I think, but also to give you a little bit of reality and to share with you what's happening with the organization. Holmes goes on Channel 4. He puts pride into that draft. The draft is his baby. And the way he was talking around to Walker about it, you see him perk up in his seat. You see the passion that he has for it. You see how important it was that he added good players in the draft. And all of these guys that he's drafted, Hutchinson, Sewell, Gibbs, Branch, Laporta, Jack Campbell, Terrion Arnold, all these guys, Aleem McNeil. These guys are all huge contributors. Jamison Williams, huge contributors. And they're all Brad's guys. So, yes, while we talk about it daily and we bring up Myles Garrett, when I watched Brad on Channel 4, I thought to myself, he's not going to do it. He is not going to pull the trigger. I just don't see it. What are your thoughts on it? Leave them on social media. YouTube comments, always welcome as well. More on this next, right here on Locked On Lions. And Locked On Lions is sponsored today by Intuit. TurboTax Taxes was waiting and wondering and worrying if you're going to get any money back, and then waiting, wondering, and worrying some more. Now Taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today. An expert who gives your taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return, while you get real-time updates on their progress so you can focus on your day. An expert who will find you every deduction possible and file every form, every investment, everything with 100% accuracy. Also, you can get the most money back, guaranteed. No waiting, no wondering, no worries. Now, this is taxes. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. Only available. TurboTax Live, full service, real-time updates, only an iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. It's a Wednesday edition of Locked On Lions, everybody, right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen. Thanks for checking us out wherever you get your podcasts. If you missed yesterday's show, why? I'm just kidding. Sometimes you miss the show. It's okay. Go to Apple, go to Spotify, go to Amazon, go to the Odyssey app, wherever you get your podcasts. Check out Damian Parson, also YouTube. Damian is the host of the Locked On NFL Draft Show. He was awesome. He was great. We've not had Damian on before, and we're going to have him on again. He broke down the draft. He talked about Jack Sawyer and Shamar Stewart and all these guys that could be possibilities for the Lions at 28. Could you imagine Jack Sawyer from OSU, the guy that was a part of the flag planting controversy for OSU Michigan, being a Lion? But Damian talked about it as a possibility, and so we wanted to bring that up for sure. Real fast on the Myles Garrett situation and what we mentioned with Brad Holmes. Rumblings out of Cleveland. The Browns are not budging right now. The Browns are not even, it doesn't sound like they're entertaining many offers at all for Myles Garrett. And I was listening to Valenti today on the ticket talking about Sporting News had a piece where they were basically saying a first and third this year, a first and third next year for Garrett, a pick swap. There's a Darius Smith going from back to Cleveland from Detroit, a second round pick coming back to Detroit, all these moving parts with a Myles Garrett trade. But the Browns, I think, from what I understand and from what I hear, their GM Andrew Berry is dug in. He is not trading Myles Garrett right now. So that then leads you to believe, well, where else can you go if you want to find that veteran edge rusher, whether it's Hendrickson? I don't think the Raiders are trading Max Crosby. They've got Pete Carroll now. But as far as any update on that, I think we're going to be, I know we're getting into free agency in a few weeks. We're getting into the draft. But I think the Browns are going to dig their heels in and tell Myles, you're under contract with us for 2 more years, and we don't want to trade you, despite the fact that you put it out there publicly that you wanted to be traded. And again, listening to Brad Holmes, I think he wants to hang on to those picks. And look, I get it. Brad Holmes took Aiden Hutchinson 2nd. Brad Holmes took Penei Sewell 7th. Took Jahmyr Gibbs 12th. Pick number 28 in what folks are calling a weak first round this year. Might not be the greatest thing ever. But still, I think Brad will view that pick as something very, very important and valuable. And if, like last year, he's got to move up to go get his guy, I think that excites him more and putting a really good player on a rookie contract more than trading away the picks and trading for a guy over 30 or that's turning 30. You could just kind of see it in his, in his mannerisms and hear it in his voice with the audio we played you about how important those draft picks are to this general manager. Darius Slay, big play Slay, the former Detroit Lion who just won a Super Bowl championship, his second in Philly with the Eagles, the very good cornerback, is going to be a cap casualty for the Eagles. He's got 1 year left on his deal, but he and Philly have already pretty much talked about it. He's not going to go back there on his current contract that he is on. It would be a 1 year deal, likely for less money. So he was on the St. Brown's podcast with Amon Ra and Equinemius St. Brown the other day. And Slay talked about that he wouldn't mind coming back to Detroit. This is going to be his last year. Darius Slay is now in his 30s. He was a tremendous player here. And yes, at the end, the whole Matt Patricia thing and everything else. But would I take Darius Slay back here on a 1 year deal for a lot less money than he's been making the last few years? Yes, I would. But I want Carlton Davis back first. Carlton Davis walking in free agency, let's say on a 2 year, $20 million deal, going back to Tampa, or signing with Philly, or signing with Buffalo, or Jacksonville. You know, Davis made $13 million last year. I don't know if that money's going to come down due to all the injuries or where this is all going to go. And again, I'll get into the salary cap discussion in a second. But Carlton Davis, to me, was the Lions' best corner this year, a veteran player that helped a lot of the young guys out. Amik Robertson's still pretty young. Terrion Arnold was a rookie. Ennis Rakestraw was a rookie. Khalil Dorsey was playing corner really for the first time this year. Kendall Vildor, veteran, but whatever. I'm not up for bringing Darius Slay back to be the team's number one corner because he's not a number one corner anymore. He was really the number 3 corner in Philly this year. Great veteran, good player, still can play. All right. But not the dominant number one, cover corner, blanket their best guy that he was when he was here going to Pro Bowls. You bring back Carlton Davis and sign Darius Slay, sign me up. I would love that. And then you can let Vildor walk and whatever. But Slay replacing Davis to me is not an option. All right. Darius is not the player he used to be. But I love his attitude about Detroit. He talked on the podcast about how he mentored, DPJ and guys like that were from Detroit. He was always showing up at high school basketball games. When I was teaching years ago at U of D Jesuit High School, Darius Slay would show up to the Cub Den all the time to see Pat Donnelly's team and hang out with the students and just walk in and be a part of it. He was an awesome ambassador for this town. And on the podcast, he called Detroit his second home. I would have no issue with Brad Holmes talking to Slay's agent about a 1 year deal and having him retire here, but he can't be your top guy. Terrion Arnold, I'm not sure is ready to be the top guy yet, but if you got Slay and Carlton Davis and Arnold, a healthy Rakestraw, Amik Robertson, that's a nice group right there. And you're going to need all of those guys. But I'm not ready to say, oh yeah, bring in Slay, let Davis walk. No. If Davis does walk, I'd be looking at a guy like Charvarius Ward from the Niners and a Slay. Never have enough cornerbacks. And we saw that at the end of the year with all of the injuries that the Lions had. So, we'll see about all of that. I mentioned before about the salary cap. I got to get into that coming up next as the number is coming up. We will do that. On a Wednesday edition of Locked On Lions, Damon Amendolara, the DA show with Babchick on Sirius XM's Mad Dog Sports Radio, Sirius XM channel 86. I listen to the show a lot. Damon really knows his football. We're going to have him on the program tomorrow, right here on Locked On Lions. But first, Locked On Lions brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA is back tonight. Yes, one game, the Mark Williams revenge game. Hornets-Lakers, a makeup game from the when the Lakers couldn't play due to the fires out in LA. You want to get on the action. When the game tips off, the NBA action just getting started at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss the opening tip-off or you want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay. You love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. If you had a first half bet, didn't come in, bet on the second half. All right. Do player props in the second half. You can do all of that. Plus, the app, excuse me, it's easy to use. And when you win, you get paid instantly. Man, the voice today is just not as good as usual. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. NBA back tonight and then a full slate Thursday and Friday. Pistons are in San Antonio Friday. Get in on the action at FanDuel. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, so news coming out today, and I had it queued up on the old phone here, that the NFL salary cap is going up yet again. And this is not should be any surprise. The NFL is printing money. They're doing great, right? And the NFL today informed teams, this is from Dan Graziano, NFL reporter, that the 2025 per team salary cap will fall in the range of $277.5 million to $281.5 million, up from last year's $255.4. The salary cap will have increased by more than $53 million over the last 2 years. So $22 million of extra money to play with if you are the Detroit Lions. And look, there are plenty of teams at every offseason, like Houston, Jacksonville, Philly used to do this. There are teams that always have a lot of cap space that spend. There are teams that have cap space that don't spend or don't go, as high as other teams when it comes to spending. I know there's talk like in Indianapolis, the Colts just have never thought a lot about putting a lot of money into their secondary, whatever. And the guy like Ife Melifonwu could be a fit in Indianapolis. But here's the bottom line when it comes to the Lions. They have some important pieces to bring back. And we've talked about this on the show. Kevin Zeitler is important. Bringing him back at right guard would be huge. All right. Cap's going up by $22 million. And they're going to finagle certain things. They're going to move certain contracts around, put stuff in the salaries and the bonuses, all the things that capologists, the Mike Disners, all these guys in the Lions front office deal with. But the cap rising that much, I think is a good sign for the Lions to retain guys like Zeitler, guys like Carlton Davis, maybe even Levi Onwuzurike if teams are concerned about his injury history. All right. One thing Brad Holmes always has said, draft, develop, keep your own, right? Keep your own. Graham Glasgow is a guy that 2 years ago came back to Detroit, had a good year. They re-signed. Last year, he didn't have such a good year, but you keep guys around. Alex Anzalone has gotten 2 contracts from the Lions in free agency. They developed him. They signed him. They developed him, and they've kept him around. And it hasn't been at a big number, right? So this could change how the Lions view some of these contracts, whether it's Glasgow's and keeping him because he didn't have a good season this year. DJ Reader at $13 million for this year. Is that a cap casualty? Or now you look up and go, all right, the floor has been raised here. We can afford to keep somebody like that. A Jamison Williams 5th-year option with the cap rising. Does that mean that makes it more of a possibility for JMO to stay? All of these things are going to play a role in what the Lions are doing. But right now, it is a good time to be good in the NFL. Now, you could argue with me, yeah, but if you're bad and you cut a bunch of players and you have all this cap space, but again, teams don't want to go and sign with Cleveland. Teams don't want to go and play in Jacksonville, where it's been dark days for a long time and there's nobody in the stadium. Right? There are some bad, stinky, smelly franchises in the NFL. All right. But I think with this cap number going up and raised by at least $22 million, I hope that gives Brad Holmes an opportunity to keep some of the guys here that they've, that are good. You want to keep good players. Yes, Christian Mahogany is on the come, and he could be the right guard if Zeitler leaves, or the left guard if they decide to not start Graham Glasgow next year. But now you at least have some more money to spend on Zeitler to keep him so that he's not going to Green Bay or to Chicago, which is where some reports have indicated those are teams that would be interested in him. And if you're worried about absorbing a big salary, wink, wink, Myles Garrett, cap goes up, there's more money to spend on a player like that. If the Lions decide to do that, which again, like I said earlier, I'm not so sure that they're going to do. So we'll have to wait and see, as they say. But there's going to be some guys making a lot of money this offseason, and there's going to be some contracts that are ridiculous. I said it last year. I thought Jonah Jackson, who's a good player here, but getting 17 or 18 million while you get Zeitler, who turned out to be a better player, for a third of that at $6.5 million was a steal. An absolute steal. Brian Burns did not have a great year this past year with the Giants. Was getting paid a lot more money than, let's say, some of these edge rushers like Jonathan Grenard and others. I'm just using those as examples, although Grenard got a pretty good contract with Minnesota. All right, Damon Amendolar is going to join us tomorrow on the program. Does the morning show on Sirius XM's Mad Dog Sports Radio. We will get his take on what's going on in Detroit. Thanks for making us your first listen, everybody. Checking us out wherever you get your podcast. Thank you again to everybody that watches or listens to the show daily, our everyday listeners. So everydayers, if you're with us, you will be with us again tomorrow when we have a DA on the program. But stay warm, everybody. It's freezing out there. And if you're on midwinter break and it's the middle of the week with your kids, moms and dads, it's only 2 more days. Then they'll be back at school next week. We'll talk to you again tomorrow on Locked On Lions.